So what happens when one of the most advanced AI companies in the world decides to draw a moral line in the sand with, of all people, the US military? Well, you get an insane public showdown that could literally reshape the future of tech and national security.
And really, this entire insane showdown, it all boils down to one monumental question. Who really gets to control artificial intelligence?
Yeah, and look, this wasn't some slow-burning debate happening behind closed doors. Nope, it was an explosion. The Pentagon basically delivered a 48-hour ultimatum to Anthropic, the folks behind the AI model Claude, and just like that, a simple contract disagreement turned into a full-blown public war.
So let's get into it. What started as, a pretty standard disagreement over the terms of service, it just escalated wildly into this massive public battle. We got to break down exactly what they were even fighting about.
Okay, so the core problem was actually pretty clear. On one side, you had Anthropic. They were insisting that their AI, Claude, absolutely could not be used for two very specific things. One, mass domestic surveillance of Americans, and two, powering fully autonomous weapons. But the Pentagon's position, it was just as firm. They said, nope, we need to be able to use this tech for any and all lawful purposes, period. They were not about to let a private company dictate exceptions.
So you got to wonder, right? Why was Anthropic willing to risk its entire relationship with the US government over these two specific points? I mean, that's a huge gamble. Let's take a closer look at what was going on in their heads.
And this quote from Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, man, it gets right to the heart of their whole argument. He wasn't framing this as just some business negotiation. For him, this was a fundamental moral stand. The idea was that, look, some uses of AI, even if they're technically legal, could actually end up harming the very democratic values they're supposed to be protecting.
So Anthropic's argument kind of had two parts. First, there was the practical side. They basically said their tech just wasn't reliable enough yet for the life or death decisions an autonomous weapon has to make. Fair enough. But second, there was the principled stand. Using AI for domestic surveillance is just fundamentally undemocratic. And then they pointed out something that seemed like a massive contradiction. They were like, wait a minute. How can the Pentagon call our tech a supply chain risk, but also essential to national security in the same breath? Which one is it?
And this was the Pentagon's response, an ultimatum delivered with zero ambiguity. It was a pretty clear statement of sovereignty, right? The military was basically saying, we will not have a private tech company telling us how to operate. And just like that, the clock was officially ticking.
And that's when this private dispute just exploded into the public arena. I mean, things were moving so fast that one senator was literally quoted asking, why the hell are we even having this discussion in public? But it was already way too late for that.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows the incredible speed of this whole standoff. Thursday morning, boom, Anthropic goes public with their side of the story. By that evening, OpenAI CEO Sam Altman seems to be backing them up. Then Friday morning, you've got hundreds of workers from Google and OpenAI signing a petition supporting Anthropic. It's all just building and building towards that 5:01 p.m. deadline. And then the deadline passed. The hammer fell. And it didn't just come from the Pentagon. It came directly from the very top.
Yeah, in a fiery all-caps post on Truth Social, President Trump didn't just side with the Pentagon. He basically declared all-out war on Anthropic. He called them a radical left woke company and then ordered a complete government-wide ban on all of their technology. Just done.
But believe it or not, it got way more serious than just a ban. The Pentagon officially labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk. Now, this is a really critical term to understand. It's not just a slap on the wrist. It's essentially a corporate death sentence. It could prevent any company that works with the military, we're talking giants like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, from doing any business with Anthropic at all. Devastating.
And then, in a truly stunning twist, right as Anthropic is basically being kicked out of the club, their biggest competitor, OpenAI, makes a huge move.
So remember that memo from Thursday night from Sam Altman? I mean, he seemed to be standing shoulder to shoulder with him, right? He stated very clearly that OpenAI had the exact same ethical red lines as Anthropic.
But then, just a few hours after the hammer came down hard on their main competitor, Sam Altman announced a deal. OpenAI was stepping in to deploy its models on the Pentagon's classified network. Now, the announcement did say that the DoD agreed with their principles on surveillance and weapons, but for a lot of people watching this unfold, the timing looked, well, less like a coincidence and a whole lot more like a ruthless business move. So, as you can imagine, this whole episode just ignited a much, much deeper debate, one that goes way beyond just these two companies. It's really about this: who controls the code that's going to control our future?
And the public debate online was absolutely fierce with, really compelling points on all sides. You had a bunch of people arguing that a private company just can't be allowed to have veto power over the military. But then others were saying the government's response was just a terrifying overreach, an abuse of power. And of course, you had that ever-present argument, hey, China isn't slowing down for ethical debates, so can we really afford to?
One of the most interesting arguments actually came from Palmer Luckey, the founder of Anduril. He framed the whole thing not as good versus evil, but really as a question of control. He asked, okay, who decides what counts as defensive, or who a civilian is? Should that be, a corporate executive worried about PR, or should it be an elected leader? His point was that if you let companies set these red lines, you're essentially giving unelected billionaires veto power over national security. And the long-term fallout from all this could be massive. See, for decades, there's been a sort of unwritten deal in Silicon Valley, right? It's simple. You build your innovative company here, and the US government protects your intellectual property with the rule of law. But this whole thing, it sent a really chilling message. Because if the government can try to completely destroy a US company over a contract dispute, why would you build the next great AI company in America?
But here's a fascinating, kind of wild twist in the immediate aftermath. While Anthropic was literally fighting for its corporate life, its AI, Claude, shot up to number 2 in the App Store. This whole David versus Goliath story created this huge surge of public interest. It seems like everyone wanted to see what this AI that the government was so scared of was all about. And this all brings us to the ultimate stakes, doesn't it? This whole standoff. It wasn't just another tech story. This was the moment AI ethics became geopolitics. Because think about it. Whoever gets to decide the ethics of AI isn't just controlling a product. They're literally setting the ethical foundation for our entire future society. And that leads us with the biggest, most important question of all. Who should that be?